Freud and the uncanny. Sigmund Freud is a very interesting person. Psychologist, the father of modern psychology. And there is a Freud museum in London. And they have this wonderful, wonderful website that's educational, collections, you can shop there, buy books. And the uncanny is something that is getting a whole new life in the last 10 years on the internet. And in the mechanization of our lives. And this thing is called the Uncanny Valley. And it's sort of that twilight place, not Twilight Zone, but it could be Twilight Zone. That twilight place between what we know is living, something we know that is mechanical and dead, and then the middle ground where they're kind of cross over each other, and animatronics and artificial intelligence and chatbots, and we become... It's called the Uncanny Valley. So you have this side, and they sort of come together and blend into this sort of valley. The Uncanny Valley, the difference between what is real and what is not real. Am I experiencing a real life? Is this an artificial life? Is artificial life real? We don't know. It's uncanny. And when I discovered this essay 30 years ago, I would talk about the uncanny as much as I could with people I tried to have conversations with. And the first thing a lot of people would say, especially in the Midwest, because the ear doesn't hear uncanny very well, I have learned, and they would often say, you mean uncanning. Like, you can something, but you uncanny? That was what they thought it meant, uncanny. Uncanning. Uncanning. And so I would say, no, it's spelled this way, and I would have to spell it, Uncanny, and then explain what it meant, and they really didn't understand it. And it's a difficult concept. But over 100 years ago, Sigmund Freud wrote his paper on the uncanny. His theory was rooted in everyday experiences and the aesthetics of popular culture, related to what is frightening, repulsive, and distressing. And it's a short, wonderful essay. The paper tackles the horrific concepts of inanimate figures coming to life, severed limbs, ghosts, the image of the double figure doppelgangers, and lends itself to art, literature, and cinema. So back then they were talking about zombies, about the Walking Dead, about the somnambulists. And today, the uncanny has been transformed mechanically, technically, into what the meaning of life is and what a real person is and what a real person is not. Freud's essay appears in two parts. The first part explores the etymology of the words Heimlich and unheimlich, homely and unhomely, as it directly translates in English. Their uses in the German dictionary and how these words are used in other languages. In the second part, Freud begins to tackle people, things, self-expressions, experiences, and situations that best represent the uncanny feeling. And he shares the story of the Sandman. Scary stories that parents would tell their kids to get them to go to sleep. And this is probably where the monster in the bed comes from. The Sandman story goes that the child must be asleep for the Sandman to put sand in the child's eyes. If they are not asleep, the Sandman will take out their eyes. The protagonist is a boy named Nathaniel, whose fate eventually does fall to the Sandman, losing not only his sight but his sanity, then his life. Freud asserts that the removal of the eyes alludes to an infantile fear of castration, but the castration complex is masked by a fear of losing a different sensitive organ, the eyes. This is the same theme present in the tragedy of Oedipus. And the story of Oedipus is that he falls in love with his mother and that he gouges out his own eyes with her brooch when he realizes the truth. The doppelganger, which is a wonderful, interesting, high concept in itself. Freud also touches upon the notion of the double, the twin, the unknown other. Mirrors, shadows, guardian spirits, with the belief in the soul and the fear of death. The idea of the eternal soul allows us an energetic denial of the power of death. That's the whole focus and purpose of religion. Your human body doesn't matter because your soul is eternal. And that idea of the separation of the soul from the body is the first double of the body, the first doppelganger. From having been assured of your immortality, that is how the uncanny, this feeling you have, separates you from ever having to worry about being dead. Edgar Allan Poe, Dora says, the imp of the perverse. Very well done. Freud writes, we can understand why linguistic usage has extended this idea for the uncanny. It is really nothing new or alien, but something which is familiar and old established in the mind and which has become alienated only through the process of repression. So we are always uncanny unless we decide we are not because we refuse to realize what's going on. Examples of the uncanny? Inanimate objects coming alive, thoughts appearing to have an effect in the real world, seeing your double, right, in a mirror or in real life, the doppelganger effect, the representation of death, such as ghosts or spirits, and involuntary repetitions. We saw that in The Matrix, a glitch. Deja vu. The uncanny arises when childhood beliefs we have grown out of suddenly seem real. Freud called it the return of the repressed. The uncanny in art. Waxwork dolls. Automated caricatures of people. Doubles, ghosts, mirrors. The home, madness, severed limbs are mentioned in the essay. The uncanny influencing painters and sculptors to explore these themes and blur the boundaries between animate and inanimate, human and non-human, life and death. So here is the latest version, the cover version of Freud's The Uncanny that you can purchase from the Freud Museum or online on Amazon. It's very beautifully done. I love this. It's very strange with the duplicity of the top image separated, cut from the bottom image. Is it a man or is it a woman or is it an automaton? Who knows? This is how The Uncanny begins. In connection with my psychoanalytic treatment of hysteria, obsessional neuroses, I have often had to deal with fragments of memories that have stayed with individual patients from their earliest childhood years. As I have indicated elsewhere, we must insist on the great pathogenic importance of impressions from this period of our lives. And then The Uncanny ends with this. A fugitive, convinced that he is a murderer, sees what he takes to be his victim's ghost, rising from every trap door he lifts, and cries out in despair. "But I've only killed one man. Why this ghastly multiplication?" The audience, knowing what has led up to this scene, does not make the same mistake as the character. Hence, what is bound to seem uncanny to him strikes us, as the observer, as irresistibly comic. As for solitude, silence, and darkness, all we can say is that these are factors connected with infantile anxiety, something that most of us never wholly overcome. Psychoanalytic research has dealt elsewhere with the problem of such anxiety. 1919, he wrote that. And today, here we are in 2022. We are anxious and uncanny, and we are wondering where we come from. And we love to watch stories about ghosts and zombies and things coming at us from a mirror. There's a whole series of horror films where a Asian woman with long black hair and black eyes comes at you from the television screen. Any modern horror movie is based on the idea of Freud's uncanny. It is this other part of us, the second part of us, that defines who we are and what we believe. And in 2007, I wrote this article in bolesblogs.com called "The Uncanny and Homesick Sexual Longing." And I invite you to go read it. I'll put the link in chat. You can also go to bolesblogs.com and do a search on that title, "The Uncanny and Homesick Sexual Longing." And here's what I said just at the beginning of the article. As a young man, I read an essay by Sigmund Freud called "The Uncanny" that continues to ripen and haunt me year after year as I am continually pressed to re-examine the realm of ghosts as wish fulfillment. How unrequited love compels a longing for a return to the womb, and why the psychoanalyst becomes the mediator of these aesthetic spirits that chase and terrify us in our waking lives, while they visit us in dreams and nightmares. Freud's The Uncanny. I recommend it if you'd like to know who you are, where you came from, and why we are frightened by things we do not yet understand.